and we will be broadcasting. Turn the technology on. Thank you very much. Excuse me, I've got my paper. So we're here for the Safer Community Subcommittee, 16th of March, and I will ask what the evacuation procedure. Is everybody familiar with it, or would you like me to read it?
All familiar, I think.
Yeah, okay. And we're okay with that, thank you very much. If we do go outside, the senior officer will be out,
Not standing.
and we all know the areas out just over there by the near the gate. Apologies for absence. Go ahead.
Councillor Osborne's daughter's hasn't been able to come because he's got issues with his childcare and daughter, and Jane is on her way. But I did say by the time she gets here, we will. But she's been held up on the way.
So she's got held up. Should be okay.
Chair, as you know, Councillor Moss has got
You know who's. And now he's in a home now, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, and you know, just while you mentioned him there, has anybody had an update on how he's getting on? He's now obviously needing care because he's in a home on a 24/7 basis.
We're going to visit him. I think it's next week. But I know Andy's been and he's doing okay.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Can we please pass on our regards?
Yeah. Okay.
Just give an update on Councillor Singwell here.
Yes.
He's had his operation. It went reasonably well, and it came out of intensive care yesterday into high dependency.
Again, please pass on our.
Thank you very much for that. And I know everybody's been trying. Well, I know he sent an email this morning. It's the first time because he's not wanted to have anybody communicated with him, and he didn't want, Kawinda didn't want anybody to actually know he was over it. So hopefully everything's on the way and he's now back on the mend. Okay, item 3 then is disclosable pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests.
Nice and wait.
The item 4 will be the minutes of the meeting of the subcommittee I held on the 14th of November. Got any comments on those from anybody? If not, can I have them moved? Any seconder?
Second.
All those in favour? Thank you very much. Passed unanimously. And now we have public participation. They're all queuing up. So item 6, fly tipping, report of the Chief Executive, which Trudy Barnsley is going to. Oh, you're just going to work the bits.
Chair, I think that we'll do it.
Yeah, I appreciate. Sorry,
Double act.
I realised that when we spoke earlier, she said I asked her to make sure that we could put it up on the screen.
Would you like me to start with that, Chair?
You two sort it out so long as we come away fully understanding and know how to work it. Thank you.
Okay, so briefly then, Chair, through you, Chair, the report is on the back of an update the transformation team and environmental.
Can you put the mic on?
Oh, sorry. That the transformation team and environmental health did a leaders group a few weeks ago. And we were asked your board report to update the relevant committees on what we're doing to try and reduce fly tipping within the borough. So yeah, of course we'd love to stop it, but in the board report we've listed how much it costs the council, so just over £200,000 per year to clear. I have to say that streetscape team, brilliant, they clear it before sometimes we even know about it, so it's not the clearing that we're trying to improve on, it's not that process, it's stopping it and reducing it within the borough. So we've got some new AI cameras that have been installed in a particular location, which obviously it's a public meeting, so I won't reveal where, but if you're interested, I can email you afterwards. And they've been installed for about 6 weeks. We've had no particular fly tipping within that area. until the cameras are working. And the difference between the cameras that we've got now and the cameras that we've previously had in traditional CCTV, CC records everything, everything, whereas the AI cameras only record vehicle or person movements. So it's obviously a lot less, and the images are really good, and it's stored in the cloud. So if the cameras were actually pinched, for example, not that we've had any pinched, if they were, we've still got those images. So it's quite powerful images that we've got. And then we've got a report which I can share. And we are constantly monitoring the report, see where our hotspots are, which is now showing. So that's live data. So that was last updated on the 10th of March, so less than a week ago. So it tells us where our hotspots are within the borough, and then we can then move the cameras into different locations, monitor from where we've moved from to make sure that the flight tipping doesn't go up in that area. So it's just a case of us looking at the data, examining the data, analysing the data and reacting to that data.
So the cameras are obviously proving effective. Have there been prosecutions or contacts being made to the persons doing the tipping in that area, and they've obviously related to other people, don't go there? Or are there signs up saying this camera is active? Or?
There are signs up within that particular area with the new cameras to say that there are, but we haven't had any fly tipped with these new cameras.
Okay.
But prosecutions.
Yeah, prosecutions obviously not with the new cameras because we haven't had any. But we've had 3 prosecutions. And we've got at the moment, just to give you an overview as to what we're dealing with from an enforcement point of view, we've got 38 active cases at the moment. 7 are being reviewed by our legal team. Then we've got 5 interviews under caution that are booked, and they're taking place this week. We've got 1 prosecution with the police, and the remaining cases are just all under. I'm just waiting for evidence. For example, we have to do cross-referencing, council tax checks, witness statements we have to gather, or even just booking IUCs. So they're just all in the process of being investigated at the moment. The rest of it.
Can I just ask, the new AI technology, is that live monitored or is it just recorded? Or
It's stored in the cloud,
right.
So we can look at it. The images are really good. So it's not monitored 24/7, no, but
Right.
it's monitored. We get email alerts. Certain officers get email alerts when there's been movement.
So then you can go and
Yeah.
have a look at the footage.
So actually, it's much more efficient for our officers because before monitoring CCTV, and I don't mean in the control room, I mean within our offices monitoring our CCTV for the traditional flight cameras, they would have to sit and trawl through images, so it would be quite time consuming, and it would all be stored on sort of SD cards, like the old fashioned cameras. Yeah.
We got one in the arcade at the minute,
But obviously now it's in the cloud, so it's much better.
That's clever technology, though.
Very,
Isn't it?
yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Ray first.
With the reduction in the area where the cameras are, has it showed an increase elsewhere? i.e., are the total number of offences the same, but the location's different? Has that one location A gone down and location B gone up? Meaning to say that there are no cameras there, but we'll dump it somewhere else.
Great question. Not sure.
Sorry, just to come back to the signs, are they in areas where there aren't cameras as well, but there could be some cameras there? Yeah, that's already in place.
They're already in place.
Yeah.
Could I come back to you on that?
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's just,
Yeah.
thought that if it's the same number of offences but in different locations and the cameras move the location, is that significant?
Okay. Denise?
Thank you. It's really interesting what Sharon's just come out with, how many cases she got. But I'm just wondering, it may take a I don't know, a few minutes to fire an email off, but it would be nice to let the councillors in that area know that, because after the travellers moved out of Manchester, I mean, me and Tony went and litter picked it all, and we found a big fly tipping, and we took photos of the evidence, but then we actually went back because it was trickling down the rain and actually bagged it all up. And I have emailed twice to see if there was anything come from that. So I think it would be good if you just sent us one probably every month to say, oh, there's these actions, because one of the first things we get asked, and I don't know if other councillors are the same, is when we attend parish meetings, what are we doing about fly tipping? So if I went to Manchester Parish Council and just said, well, actually, there's 3 being looked at, there's 1 active, I think that would.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cluj. Yeah, we have we do have regular meetings now, but I totally get your point. And we are planning to do that. We're planning to go out to the parish councils to engage with them to keep them updated. But I do, yes, I will add that to as an action for the fly tipping group. We'll email you, even if there's no change, we'll email you and let you know what's going on in each of your areas.
Because I think a lot of the time they get in touch with us and says, I think I'll fly tipping. And, you know, sometimes I will actually do it if they're not capable, or we will say, like, pass it on to Borough Council. But it's normally we're the first point of contact. Well, thank you, Sharon.
Tony?
It was kind of to follow up Ray's point as well, in that, you know, are we just moving it around? Because that is the fear with the cameras. They're so well advertised that we're probably just moving it to locations. So we do need to be really clear on whether we're reducing it. But also it seems that with that downside of the cameras, it seems like our residents are probably our greatest asset here. And that most of the prosecutions that we've got have been residents that have reported or captured it on video, or, sorry, please excuse me. It's on Do Not Disturb. So most of us, I think, are aware that our residents are kind of our greatest asset. Is there anything we can do to enable or incentivise or even make the process clear? Because I constantly have residents that don't know whether they should be, if they're watching it live, whether they should be reporting it to police, whether they should be reporting it to us, whether, you know, obviously the police capability for fly tipping is not a priority. You know, so is there anything we can do to enable the residents more? And also I've got kind of concerns about the low level. So just, we've got like a bucket dumped at the side of a road, or one tyre, or, do you know what I mean? Something that wouldn't necessarily crop up as a, this has been fly tipped and a report, but it's that slow increment of, you know, once you've got 2 or 3 of them down the side of the road, then it starts to look a mess. You know, are we regularly kind of patrolling also to look out for those things and being able to tackle the smaller bits as well?
Well, I can speak from my end point, if you like, the enforcement side of things, and we can put some communications out there, because there's also an offence of duty of care as well with waste, and I think a lot of people wouldn't know about that element of it as well. I think you've probably seen people put, if they want to get rid of a piece of furniture, they put it out the front and thinking, oh, this might be useful for somebody, but actually that's sort of technically fly tipping, and they have a duty of care over their own waste. So I think what we need to do is we need to obviously up the communications about what is fly tipping. Everything, even a tyre, is just the one tyre is technically fly tipping. And then just going back to the people reporting it, we do need good evidence in order to move it on to either a fixed penalty or a prosecution. So we do need witness statements, or we do, and it's continuity of evidence. So if the person's taking photos, they're their exhibits, if you like, so they'll need to do a witness statement, and people might be reluctant to do that if this case is going to court, because it's their details, it's their witness statement. So it's usually, the cameras are perfect for evidence for us from an evidential point of view, and obviously if it's an officer that's, you know, that can witness it, that's ideal.
I was going to ask you, Ray, when we spoke earlier, you did talk about posters.
Yeah.
And also you talk about one of the worst places we got is in front of Lower House Farm.
That was Bernadette.
Is it Bernadette? Oh, sorry, Bernadette.
Yeah, if I can just move to fly posting as opposed to fly tipping, which is pretty much one of the same. We had quite a serious incident, and it's happened several times over a period. The last one was on Shrove Tuesday, where there was a lot, and Alison's smiling, she knows what I'm going to say, and I'll defend the police in this instance, which is unusual, but nevertheless. I phoned Sergeant Scalzi and told him of this incident. He immediately responded and removed them. He got CCTV evidence that was absolutely 100%. Prepared to take this individual to court, because it's not the first time, it's probably 5-6 times. But the officers have decided not to do anything with it. And it's very disappointing. And as I say, defending the police, it must be demoralising when they get a case like that, where they've got all the evidence, CCTV evidence, visual evidence, statements, whatever. And then the council decide, yeah, we're just going to slap this individual on the wrist. And to me, it was very disappointing, because I saw it happening, and Sergeant Scalzi responded within minutes and rang me back and said, yes, we're doing it.
I know which case you're talking about. We haven't decided that we're not doing anything with it. We've got a meeting with planning on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Planning can deal with fly posting, and we can deal with fly posting as well. So we're going to come up with a policy between the two departments as to which legislation we use depending on the situation. And so we definitely haven't decided we're not doing anything with it at the moment. It is still very much in progress.
That's good, because as I say, it's I won't go through all the incidents, but obviously Inspector Wiggin is fully aware of what's gone on. And how long's it been now? 2 years, possibly longer than that. And it needs bringing to an end. And as I say, Sergeant Scalzi did an absolutely superb job within minutes. Got all the evidence. He's got CCTV images, which apparently are cracking images from the new system, and it's something that needs doing to stop this, which has been going on for probably over 2 years. And this is the second time it's been presented like that. There was another time where there was loads around the town that PCSO Scott took the initiative on that, and again, it came to nothing. So fly tipping and fly posting are the same. They're dumping rubbish where rubbish shouldn't be dumped. Thank you.
Bernadette.
I'm Badsley in Grendon Ward, and our biggest bugbear is people that go to the tip without an appointment, and rather than take the rubbish home, tip it in farmers' fields and gateways and so on. And there was a Teams meeting last week or the week before with the county, and it was dismissed as, but if you ask our residents, this is something that's happening constantly, and it isn't just domestic. Well, it's domestic waste, but it's also builders and restaurants and shops and all sorts. So that for us in Badsley and Grendon is something that really needs cleaning. And myself and Councillor Wright believe it's for the domestic side, but anyway, is the fact that there's still a booking system every Monday to Sunday, rather than, it's been suggested that it's split, maybe quiet times, no booking, busy times, booking. But something needs to be done, because it's just getting worse.
No, I come in there, Chair.
Yeah.
I do know that Kath, James, our new interim corporate director, had a meeting with county, so trying to address that. But one of the things, obviously, I don't know the outcome of whether it'll be booked or just turn up. Numbers don't necessarily support that, I have to say, kind to pre-COVID. And
Are you talking about the surveys that they've done from county?
no, numbers as in increased fly tipping. But saying that, what we are going to do is advertise the later night. You know, I think it's from the 1st of April, just to try and use our comms and push more comms out to say that that you've got. I think there's a Wednesday. I think it opens till 6:15 on a Wednesday and 5:45 on a Saturday and Sunday. But statistics will tell us that the area just outside Lower House Farm is a hotspot. So that has made it onto our radar. Just checking all data. There's a couple of other areas that are quite hotspots as well.
If everybody was surveyed as opposed to just the people that managed to get in, then you'd most definitely get a different picture of the need for there to be at least a hybrid booking sometimes and open other times.
Yeah. Through you, Chair, I do know that it is on CAT's radar with the county. Interestingly, Sharon's team attended an event locally, joint with the police, and a lot of residents' perception is that as well. Why do people flight it? And that was the response with the team, wasn't it? Because people have to book. Thank you.
Denise.
Can I just come back, Chair, on 5.4.1? He said, below is the week of action communication plan, week of action September 22. And if you read down, it says promote to councillors and public the need to leave evidence with the fly tipping comms. I've never received that. I've never been told to leave it. I mean, twice I've done it, I have took photos and sent it in. And one of them, it was because it was absolutely chucking it down the rain. So I think if that was done in September 22, it probably needs to be sent out again. Because I think the natural thing is like I did, because it was chucking it down the rain, we'll save the evidence.
We have identified that there is 3 particular peak times for fly tipping. So September being one, January being another, and around Easter times. Tends to be when having clear outs in garages and sheds and things like that. So this week of action was specifically around that. So we all went at that particular point. But what we need to do better is sustain that. So when we cross the queue, we automatically get it on our website and flood our ponds and tell you about it. We do need to get better at that. And we do know that. So we'll try harder.
On that point, just, for your social media, you can do scheduled posts. You can literally just save a post to go out every week reminding people, and then obviously your incidental stuff comes in on top of it. But just the idea of having a 1 week where we blitz it isn't going to have a long-term impact. And I know it's kind of identifying the trend and targeting those, but I think it would be an easy ask to kind of just repeat that every week or something.
Can I bring up a point? Where I live, which is at the top of the county or top of the borough, it is easy to go to Swadlincote or to go to Ashby. 4 miles to go, maybe 7 miles to go to Ashby. They close 2 days during the week, but they operate 5 days, including the weekends, and they have 2 8:00 nights as well. So, and they don't book you in, so you can either go South Derbyshire in Swadlincote or Stafford Burton. Through I'm not sure, is that Ashby's Leicester, isn't it? So they obviously operate very, very similar systems. But because they're not booking in, I don't know, I can't make a claim that there's less fly tipping, but you do know that you can get there at 8:00 at night sometimes. And I'm not sure about the regime sometimes when people turn up with vans, etc. And I think we're a very good council when it comes to picking up large rubbish. It's 25 quid, take 5 large bits of rubbish away. I don't see how people struggle with a settee in the back of a Fiesta, if you like, to dump it down the lane. It makes no sense to me where that's concerned. So is it through Kath James and that now taking over? I know the members around Grendon, Baddesley in that area have had a meeting with Heather Timms, who is the portfolio holder at County. And it's fair to say your words fell on deaf ears, didn't they? That part, Ray? She wasn't interested in.
No.
You had the meeting with them, didn't you?
Her and Andrew Powell were more. Were you part of that?
No.
All right.
Kath has updated me.
Well, right. Heather and Andrew Powell were quite dismissive, and they took the across the county statistics as opposed to the specific area statistics and doing it that way, it wasn't as bad as it seemed. And again, it was them that said that they surveyed the people that managed to get into the tips and not the ones that couldn't. So it just didn't give a true reflection of what was really happening. And Councillor Wright is very passionate about fly tipping. He walks his dog every day and he sees the fly tipping every day and he posts it on social media every day. So, you know, for him that it's something that is happening. And he was enormously frustrated after that meeting. And he had a conversation with her the following day where she said, basically, this isn't what the statistics don't say what you're saying. So, yes.
So my suggestion is we go back and try and, should it just be officers that meet each other between the North Warwickshire and Warwickshire County Council and come to some arrangement? Or by the look, at the moment, they've dismissed the members because the local members talk. And I know Heather Timms and I know what she's like in terms of digs her heels in, but it isn't working. You can't take the average across the whole county when you're talking about such a small area as North Warwickshire. So I don't know what you think, Mr. Tobin, about organising a meeting, going back through officers, or have a mixture of officers and members.
Julie's been waving.
Julie, sorry.
Yeah, it was just to say, I mean, Cass James is definitely on the case. Just to say, obviously, Cass' predecessor, Richard Dobbs, I think reported to a previous meeting that he had brought this up at a strategic level at the county, and also got told the same answer was that it's not going to change. So I don't know where we go in terms of that kind of, because you've heard it from both sides, from both the senior officers and councillors. The other point that I just wanted to make, and I think is really important in terms of this discussion, is that in terms of the statistics, statistics is obviously public land. It does not take into account like farms, fields and so forth. And I know certainly from a recent meeting with the NFU, Alison certainly got told that is one of their biggest objections for the farmers is the number of fly tips.
Yeah, Chair, fly tipping isn't normally something that police ever have any involvement with. It doesn't, as a rule, cross our path. But in North Warwickshire, you're lucky because I also hold the rural crime portfolio for Warwickshire and the rural crime team, and fly tipping is one of the strands that sit within the rural crime team. And that's not to say that we are going to take on the job of the council, but it's definitely one that we can support in, and that's why we have the prosecution of a recent individual for fly tipping. But where the police can probably be more effective is that they are naturally out and about, they naturally respond to incidents, they naturally have the ability to respond quicker than officers would. So if there is a fly tipping incident carrying on, there is nothing to stop an individual contacting the police to say there's somebody dumping, and I don't mean a rubbish bag, I mean a transit load or out the back of something significant that is going to cause, a bit of an environmental issue. There is nothing to stop that individual contacting the police, making them aware of where it's happening, giving the details of the registration, because you'd be surprised how many people actually see it go on. But for whatever reason, don't think that the police will be interested. If there is an opportunity, we'll try and get out. Now, I'm not going to make any promises that you're going to get a police officer rousing out to a fly tip, but if a rural crime officer is on duty or a safer neighbourhood officer, it is in their interest because it's affecting the community. And we've made, as part of the problem-solving meeting we have every month, we made it one of the priorities to try and address fly tipping. So we will make those efforts and then work with the council on prosecutions. If we can take it forward at that point, we do. But 9 times out of 10, we'll try and secure the evidence and then pass it on to the council, who've then got the ability to progress it to prosecution or whatever decision they make at the time. So North Warwickshire is probably more robust in how it deals with fly tipping than the rest of the county, and I can talk from that perspective because I cover the county and I cover the county for that one single issue in the rural crime team.
Thank you for that. Any more questions then? Thank you very much, Trudy. Well, I was going to say thank you very much. It says Trudy on the bottom of this report. 2389.
Yes,
That's you.
just Chair.
Well, and thank you very much, Sharon, as well. Any other questions of Sharon, just in case I offend Sharon?
That's already done.
That's already a day's work. Thank you very much. And go now if you want to.
Many
Yeah.
thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. If you really insist. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Have a nice evening all.
Right, sorry, I've missed I've got to formally move the recommendation. I'll move it from the chair that the report is noticed. Councillor Jarvis, all those in favour? Thank you very much, unanimous. So the next item is Safe Community, North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership. Recommendation to the subcommittee that members consider the update and identity at any areas of further scrutiny and consideration. And item B, that members note progress of the North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership Plan.
Chair, reflecting on last meeting, I've invited Inspector Wiggins to today's meeting, so we can cover any questions and the report together. I won't run through the whole report, but I do want to highlight a few key things in terms of the kind of community safety performance, partnership performance. The first thing on page 13, I just wanted to highlight that as part of our strategic assessment, which informs our priorities that we have for 4 years, part of that process is more our scoring after 2 years, and that took place in autumn. It was really just to flag up that the county kind of conducts that exercise, and it was really just to flag up there was no new emerging priorities outside of our existing ones. So it's just that just gives you reassurance that our priorities are the right ones for us at the current time. And then in terms on page 13, and I'll come back to this, but we've obviously got ongoing issues in terms of violence, and I think Alison will also help me in terms of discussing the details of that. On page 14, we've still got issues around vehicle crime, and there's some quite detailed information in terms of the hotspot locations around kind of our key roads around North Warwickshire. There's also some detail there in terms of the highest volume of offences being from Corley services, and then something that Alison refers to, or Inspector Wiggins refers to as car cannibals, where literally cars are stripped for their parts, whether it be a bumper, I don't know what the
Well, it's literally sometimes people can park their car up to go to a train station and they can find that the front of it is no longer there, the bumper, the lights, the grille, and it's whatever part is needed. Unfortunately, car parts are in short demand. There are issues in the supply chain, and as a result, and it is across the country, North Warwickshire isn't unique, cars are being stripped in situ, and it's often done with men in high-vis jackets with a van looking very official, and people don't think to question when there's somebody in a high-vis coat, and it's very quick. But it's something that I need to encourage the reporting of, because whilst we can patrol, wherever we patrol, they aren't going to be there. They'll go and find somewhere else. So it's the public that are the eyes and the ears for us and reporting it. There has been a reduction because of the patrols and because of the messages, but I'll let Julie carry on with the report.
So it was really, so there's a few key things I just want to flag up. So that's an ongoing issue. There's a lot of engagement going on, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. You can answer any questions around that. The other kind of things that I just wanted to highlight which is quite concerning, is the KSIs, which is on the bottom of page 14, around fatalities. So that has gone up, which is obviously very, very sad. And again, it's something that we might need to be doing some more work around in terms of looking at that. What in advance of this meeting, what we've started doing is having a look at where do those fatalities take place. We're trying to look at, our worst junctions in the district as well, and see if there's any comparisons between that kind of data. So we can have a further discussion about that, but it's just to reassure you that we've noted that is of concern in terms of North Warwickshire, and we are going to start looking at drilling down on some of the data on that.
Sorry.
I just wanted to kind of ask a question on that, of whether those incidents are around our dangerous junctions or whether there are wider problems.
I only got the data yesterday, unfortunately. We have traffic analysts within the police, and they have drilled down to it was 8 fatalities. They've correlated it to the locations where we've got the largest number of incidents, other accidents and speeding, but I haven't had the opportunity yet to look at it, but we will.
Because obviously if it is those junctions, then it just means that we need to address those, which we already know, but as priority. But if it's not, then we've got a wider issue, and we need to actually kind of start looking at the driving patterns and what's causing it in other areas.
I think you said that they're on A and B roads, more not on motorways.
It was the majority of the roads, they're 50-mile-per-hour roads. That's where the majority of the accidents, but there were a couple on the M6, but it's the majority of the 50-mile-per-hour roads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on, Denise.
Yeah, it's a big concern, the KSIs for Manchester, especially, Woodford Lane. And then, of course, when there's a problem on Woodford Lane, it backs up to Manchester Road. So we get all the ones coming through Manchester. So it's always been a concern for us as board members and also Manchester Parish Council. So I know that's one of the problem ones. But how we solve it, I don't know, because I've been trying for 4 years just to get speed reduction. But, we've had the police there, but again, it's Parish Council.
Could I add that? Because I think I remember saying to the Police and Crime Commission, said that our target is to reduce it by 50%, and I said that's an aspiration. It's all right saying want to, it's what we're to do about it, and that I know that's the how long's a piece of string question, isn't it? Because I don't know what we can do, and there are crossroads, etc., and we've seen them on straight pieces of roads. So what's that about? Do you know of any initiatives that are coming through the system to try and do anything about it?
I think Councillor probably had his hand in the air first, but I can answer.
Okay.
No, you can answer.
It's the road safety unit that deal with the KSIs and the planned activity, because they're in charge of the camera vans. They look at other speed enforcement, and they link in with the county council for suggestion for engineering works. I know there's 4 separate strands going forward that they'll be developing, but I'm not personally privy to them. I think if you have an opportunity to talk to the road safety unit or get somebody to discuss their plans going forward, they'd be a lot more informed than I am, because I don't want to give you false information.
Okay, thank you. Kerry.
Through you, Chair. I know through Annesley Village, we've had some highways work done for build outs, and big problem we have is people's attitude to driving. They're inconsiderate. The first one, as you come off Birmingham Road towards the village, for starters, it should be 30 mile an hour from that junction, not from as you enter the village. There's a build out now, and people are overtaking cars that are waiting for cars to come forward. People are driving over the build outs at 30 mile an hour, probably 40 mile an hour, and wrecking their cars. And you sort of think, how much can we do as a council, as a county, as a borough, to educate people to drive considerately? Because everybody's in a rush to get somewhere, but as soon as one incident happens, nobody can get in. So it's not a police issue. We need to work together to educate people. Prosecutions just don't work. People pay the fine and they still drive like they're the priority on the road. I mean, I drive for a living, and I go up and down the motorways, and I see things happen. And you sort of think, why do people drive like this? And they're in a safe bubble, predominantly. And I think the KSIs don't actually show the reality anymore, because the bubble is a safe bubble now. They can have a high-speed impact and still walk away from it. If not, they will survive it. But it's how do we, again, educate the people in the borough and the people on the roads to drive safer.
That's another piece of string question, isn't it? How long's that?
Well, but the thing is, it's an attitude. Yeah.
Inspector Biggins.
Chair, when I worked in the south of the county, they had a really interesting project that was running with the local colleges, and it was with young drivers, and there was education and a course that young drivers could go on. I think they did it in conjunction with Brake, where they piloted this, aiming it at people who traditionally have much higher insurance because they are involved in the accident. And they are our, future drivers that are going to be having, antisocial behaviour. So I've got a strong belief that there probably needs to be a more investment with the new drivers at that point when they are probably at most risk and have an ability to change their driving attitude as a consequence.
No. Any other questions on that at the moment? Sorry, Jodie.
It's just about page 21 and the community speed watch, and this is something that we've asked before, in that although these community speed watch projects are fully active, they're not actually active. And it's just kind of, we don't seem to have, and we've asked for this before, some kind of level of monitoring of when and who and how often these things actually happen, and whether there is, incentivisation, or whether people, obviously it's been winter, I understand it's difficult to go out in the dark and the cold, and if you've got volunteers, especially if they're struggling with mobility issues, but it's not my understanding that these groups are actually active, even though they've got the equipment, and it's what we can do to facilitate that and encourage that.
Can you answer that at all?
The community speed watch is managed by the road safety unit. Unfortunately, I don't have the facts that you're after, but I know that the person who organises the community speed watch can get that kind of data for you. It's one that sadly hasn't been as active as everybody would like it to have been, but I think there's a lot of factors involved in that, some of them which is training of the new volunteers by the police. But in North Warwickshire, we now have a trainer who can, if there are volunteers, we can easily get that up and running, because before we had to rely on the road safety unit to do that. I'm just very interested in kind of removing the barriers, because I think it's a brilliant thing, and it changes that habitual nature, because you go down a straight piece of road that people might just forget and put their foot down a bit, and if you've got a community speed watch there regularly, then when they go through that, they think, oh, and they check. And just that kind of habitual nature and changing those habits, especially in our residential areas, is really important to me. So if we have got that and can find out what the barriers are and what we need to do in order to make sure.
Can we find that out, Julie? Because I think Inspector Williams has got enough to do on her side.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the last meeting, the information I put into this report followed on from a bit of a fact-finding mission after the last meeting. So I think from what I understood from Simon Ackroyd was that the difficulty comes is because it is a volunteer-based activity, and therefore, that the changing dynamic of volunteers and being reliant on volunteers is that if they're available and can go out, then some will. But I think the restriction or the limitation has been sometimes around the volunteer aspect and having enough people. So I think you need 3 to go out and run the exercise. But I can follow up again from this meeting and just to get to find out whether there's any active monitoring going on regularly and so forth.
All right, thank you. Jodie.
I know before they've done like a target day, and that was really successful, and that got 7 or 8 groups out at one time. And I just think these regular reminders and kind of saying to people, right, on next Sunday, can you get your team together, and actually having that regular reminder and incentivising people is really, and once they've done it once, there's more chance of them saying, right, what's your next date? There are ways to kind of manage the volunteers. I think that there may be a resource issue. I don't know. I'm sure he's got other priorities as well. But yeah, I just think that if we can possibly look at removing some of those barriers rather than accepting, great.
Can I just go back to page 17, please? And it's just why Alison's here. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of the Aston Town Council. just to say thank you to PCSOs that's helping us with this public space protection order that we're trying to get. And again, this is fear of crime, because we've got one or two out there who are on the benches, absolutely out the trees, shouting and screaming. And we know they're fine, but visitors or any elderly coming, one is a prohibited one. I don't know if you all noticed him in the doorway as we've just come into the meeting. And that's one, he'll probably be lying there and the dog's with him. So again, it's just to say thank you for the help that they've given us to try and get this through.
Any other questions on the report before we go on to the numbers? Thank you for that. Let's, would you like to go through some of the numbers? Have any got questions about them?
Chair, just to say on page 15, we've got things like we've noted about domestic abuse. There's always been high levels of domestic abuse across the whole of the county, and there is a lot of activities at a county-wide level around this. But something that we want to do on a local level is to actually have a look at say, the top 10 repeat victims in North Warwickshire, and see if we can see if there's ways and means in partnership with other partners to work with those people, or provide very localized information or communication, or whatever support we can put out into the community, and have a look at that. So I just wanted to flag that up because that is a key issue for North Warwickshire.
Thank you.
Do you want me to go through?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, you're not going to do the same detail as Sarah, but you've got the Oracle there. She understands all the numbers down to the nth degree.
So if we, so in Word form, they're on page 13 onwards, under section 4. So you've got violence with injury. So again, it says offences significantly increased during this quarter. 10% of the offences were non-fatal, and so in line with county-wide proportions. The thing here is, again, it's saying that these are likely to take place in a public place. And we have discussed some of this at some of our meetings, and to put it in a different way, it's often where something has occurred, they might be drinking, and it's a one-on-one situation.
Yes, so to help Julie out, sometimes
Thank you.
the violence figures, they also are very tied up with domestic abuse figures, because one incident, or rather one person, can create multiple crimes, because within a family situation there can be violence towards other people, and it often skews the figures. But the public places where you get violence in public places, that's usually where there's a number of people, and it's not that you've got lots of problems around the public areas, it's just that you've got usually one or two that have created multiple offences, if that makes sense. We don't have a violence problem in our public areas. You don't have sporadic fights on a Friday and Saturday. There are the occasional ones, but when you do get the occasional ones, say in a public house, and they have happened in Alveston in January and February, they are with a number of offenders and a number of offences, and that's what throws your figures into the air. So it's kind of just to reassure you that sometimes figures, if not interpreted, can be quite misleading, unfortunately.
Because this is an ongoing issue, I think. Is there any way that we can have, I don't know, some kind of number of events recorded as well? Is there any way we can kind of have any more information that helps us read into those? So if there's 16 offences but only one event, then we can see that it's one issue. I don't know if there's any.
I don't think it's actually recorded that way, because I think in one area of the report it does say there was 5 offences. We know 3 offences why it was the same individual.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the actual data itself says that. I don't know if that's it's the knowledge behind the data.
Yeah. But we don't want to constantly drag the knowledge to our tables, do we? So if there's a way of having that in a report, it means that we don't have.
If you have a report and there are figures in it that you've got concerns over and you want some answers, the only way that it can happen is I have to dig into like I do, I dig into the detail to find out and reassure myself what's gone on, which is what I do in the monthly meetings. I don't know how in advance you get your reports and whether you can flag these as concerns, and then I can come to the meeting. I'm more than happy to come to the meetings to explain, because I think that provides sometimes reassurance, and also I get to feedback of the concerns. But if that is what you want, then I can do it, but I just need that advance notice where figures to you you need some interpretation on where they are out of whack with what you expect or what you think is the norm.
Can I just say, Julie, those numbers are the same numbers that went to the RAG, aren't they? Which means they're 3 weeks old.
These are the latest
The
figures.
latest, so they have been
the latest
modified
figures
since
that we
then.
have at the moment.
So that it's too. And I asked her how much time, because you've got 1 or 2 other things to do, haven't you? So would you need like 10 days before or longer?
I could do with a week before,
Right.
because I never know what's booked in my diary. I often ask somebody else to do some of the work for me, but I do like to look at it myself. So if you can give me a week, then there's every chance that I can put some interpretation and give you that breakdown as to the number of people involved and the locations, and then you can judge for yourself as to whether it's an issue or not.
Chair, just to say, we have 2 other meetings that are reported in this report. One being antisocial behaviour meetings, which are monthly, that take place monthly, and one which is problem solving meeting, which are also reported in here. Both those meetings we will look at statistics about any emerging issues, and in terms of antisocial, it is literally the operational things that have been taking place, or we're looking at case management, so we're looking at individuals. But then in terms of problem solving, you'll be looking at data, looking at emerging trends. And like, for example, and I hope this works out, but for example, we know the police have made a number of arrests around offenders relating to vehicle crime. And so we would hope to see a change in vehicle crime within North Warwickshire, because we know we've taken a number of people over the last month. I think there was 2 this week, wasn't there? And I think there was also some others previously that you were watching. So we should see a change, hopefully, in the pattern of vehicle crime in some of our hotspot locations. So yes.
Do you want to talk more about vehicle crime, Chair, or I've been happy to. Vehicle crime is not just one simple category. In the police, we have probably 4 categories for vehicle crime. We've got theft of motor vehicles, we've got theft from motor vehicles, we've got interference with motor vehicles, and there's just many more the categories. But what we concentrate on really are the theft of the motor vehicles and the theft from the motor vehicles. And again, they could be split down into. People steal motor vehicles mainly now they're called keyless car thefts, that's right, where they use a remote relay device through people's houses. They'll cotton onto your fob, they'll get the signal off that, and they'll be able to start your motor and they're off in the distance, or they'll just hook it onto the back of a trailer and that's the end of it. There is work ongoing with crime prevention, because a lot of that can be prevented by stopping the signal in the first place. Admittedly, there are devices in the market that can replicate the signal. We can't stop that, but we can, where there are significant areas being affected, make sure our patrols are there, but also go that one step further with the crime prevention advice, and it's good old-fashioned locks, steering locks and things like that. On the other side, the theft from motor vehicles, in Alderstone, you suffer from sometimes sneak-in thefts where people leave their cars unlocked, and they will just try, on a night, a homeless person will try every single door until they get lucky, and they'll get the change or whatever is stored in the motor vehicle. I refer to them as the car cannibals. That is just my terminology. Don't read anything into it. It's because they strip the cars, and that has predominantly been around, I think it was Coleshill, definitely around the Parkway and Water Orton. And then you have also suffered from a lot of theft of motorbikes, because we've had some people that have been active in stealing motorbikes. And again, unfortunately, it was Alveston area that got hit. So when you see vehicle crime, it is so different because the offenders come from there's homegrown offenders locally. We get our West Midlands offenders coming over for the car parts, stripping them, go back into the West Midlands, and we have to work with our other police forces to deal with that. And then you've got the ones that are the professionals, the ones that are after your Jaguars, your Land Rovers, and your Ford STs seem to be very popular to be stolen there with the keyless car theft. So it's a very complex area of business, and it leaves lots of different tactics. But we have to work together to either educate the public for crime prevention, help themselves. These Ring doorbells have been amazing in allowing us to obtain the evidence. Often seeing people creeping around at night, you have no idea until you start to look at your Ring doorbell footage who's been looking underneath your doormat. They've been invaluable. But also CCTV from the town centre. There's lots of little parts that come into play to try and tackle it, because of the very varied nature that one single topic, vehicle crime, can constitute. So a very long-winded saying, it's complicated.
Okay.
Chair, can just say something on the keyless one? And I've worked in the motor industry for all my life, and one of the people, the main one that's got the equity in this, is the manufacturer of vehicles, that they make them with the keyless entry. I've got one, and I've got a steering bar that goes across the steering wheel because it's visible. Do you ever approach the manufacturers of the vehicles? Because to me, they've got as much equity in this as anybody, or probably more than anybody.
Chair, I can probably answer that. I know that your local MP, Craig Tracy, has been lobbying. Is it Thatcham? Car design.
Just all the locks.
Yeah, he has been working closely with them to pressurise.
That's not the manufacturers; they're the testers.
Yeah, but they are. But he's been working with people to try and get, because it is accepted that every time you do something, you need to reinvent the security further down, and that will be the way forward. But it is something that's acknowledged.
I've said it all along. Obviously, I worked at JLR for quite a few years, and the number of people that have problems with keyless is innumerable. I mean, I've got one, and at night I always put the steering bar on that's visible, because the locks are absolutely useless, and promoting the Faraday cases.
Can I ask, are there many that stole never to be seen again?
I don't have the figures, but a lot of them. I know that we've had a series of the Land Rovers, the 4x4s, they get exported. They'll be off over the continent, down to Africa, Middle East, never to be seen again. The recovery of cars is low, unfortunately. But when people have trackers, and many more people are fitting trackers now, they're invaluable, because that's how we have recovered them recently. But it's not many people will fit a tracker unless they have motorhome. I think motorhomes, people are starting to fit that kind of device, but not necessarily in their own personal cars.
I saw a TV programme not too long ago where they followed through a tracker 64 containers that turned up in Ghana, and when they opened up, they had 100 4x4s. So right, they've ordered down to Q7s and Land Rovers and Jaguars. So obviously it's a big business. So any more about cars? Because I was going to ask something about antisocial behaviour. Because I was looking on the back page here, and there's massive drop. Have you been really busy out there, or
can I take that as a win?
I just wondered, is there any reason in the last quarter? It wasn't cold, was it? It wasn't there was snow around all the time, so people were staying indoors or anything like that.
I don't know whether the councillors. Did you have your hand up?
Oh, it was just it's just reading through it, and because you said you're connected with rural crime, there doesn't seem to be any figures on here for rural crime in a rural area. Because I do know Harold quite, what's it with rural one, and it was just like you said. I remember a few years back, my friend's horse got stolen, we happened to go down Devon on holiday and go across the moors, and there was the horse box sitting on the moors. All the change was the number plate, but it had still got the girls' names on the outside. And I just wondered why there's no figures for rural on here, theft of vehicles, like tractors, and because we are a rural community and we have got quite a lot. I couldn't see any unless I've missed it.
Right. I don't know whether you get a breakdown of rural crime on your figures, but Carol Cottrell is a rural crime coordinator.
Brilliant.
She collates all of
Can we clone her?
Yeah. She collates all of the data around theft of tractors, theft of quads, ATVs, telehandlers, anything that is related to rural businesses. And that's something that you can easily have, but I don't think it's included at that level in this report.
There's one line there. It says rural crime offences. It's gone up by one.
It would be, Julie, because for our ward, we've got quite a few farmers, and I know some of the others in their area. So it would be a good knowledge for us to have.
Chair, just to say that that's probably an oversight on mine, because I tend to go by the performance data and then populate the report. But certainly Carol reports into various meetings and produces regular information. And I know just recently has just done that, hasn't she? So I can certainly include that going forward.
Yeah, as I say, that horse box, you was talking 40, 50,000 pounds.
Yeah. There has been a significant one, £158,000 worth of stuff picked up in one location recently. It showed you several before, the quad bikes.
Oh, that was Chair, that was an incident. The rural crime team are very, very good at recovering stolen property because the rural community use trackers.
Yeah.
They're very switched on with protecting their property because they have traditionally been very vulnerable to crime, and so they had to get a lot smarter, a lot quicker. But the trackers are so good that we can recover property, and 150 grand's worth was recovered last month through a tracker, through 2 quads that were stolen. Go onto a site, pinpoint it within 3 metres, and then once you're on a site, you can usually find other items that are suspected to be stolen and recover it that way.
One of the other initiatives that farming friends of mine was, because I used to be a member of Addiston Riding Club and Addiston Pony Club, was when they put the signs on, if you see this trailer out after 9 p.m, please phone this number. And that's worked really well.
I was going to say, I'm not sure how long you've been in the role now, but your predecessor, I went to a rural crime scene run by Carol Cottrell and the inspector. It was at the Smithy Farm shop in the barn at the back, and he opened it. It was about lambing time because there was lambs everywhere. The strange thing was they were nearly all Leicester farmers. There was hardly anybody from Warwickshire went. I found that amazing. And there must have been 40 or 50 people in that barn. It was a very, very good presentation.
Yeah.
But obviously, we didn't tell anybody in Warwickshire that Warwickshire were running something because there's only about 5 farmers from Warwickshire there. It was, like I say, quite interesting. And I know you can put the message out there and you can bang the drum, but you can't lead horses to water and make them drink.
Probably working hard.
Warwickshire farmers working hard.
Getting a fly tipping up.
I would have come, but somebody just nipped before. Right, any other questions on the number?
Has to be done. Page 26, knife crime. And obviously, thank you, Matt, Sally, for coming and reassuring us all that knife crime is low, and even noted in these figures, we've got 100% increase, but it's from 2 to 4 over that quarter, which still, varies above where we'd like it to be. But it's just kind of around the disconnect that was quite obvious at that meeting, that we have got an issue in the schools, and the schools saying, that there's an issue there, and it not necessarily being realised and recognised in our figures, and how we kind of address that and break down that barrier. Because if we've got our communities telling us that there's knives in the school, if we've got the kids telling us there's knives in the school, if we've got the school doing bag checks and finding knives in the school, but then we've got data that says there's no recorded crimes of knives in school, then we've got a communication issue.
If the schools find it, but they report to the police, will deal with it internally.
They should be reporting it to the police, and occasionally they do, but I can't comment for the school's policies.
No. So there may be the disconnect might be in the schools in that sense. I mean, I'd like to know how you obviously think it's a bit, because I know you get quite uptight about it.
Very.
About how serious it is, because you know, I've got 3 grandsons at all, and I speak to them about it actually. Generally, after you bang the drum and a mate comes to mind, and I see them, and they've never complained about anything. And I've got 2 in Polesworth, 1 in a school in Sheepy, but unless they're just poo-pooing it, where I'm concerned, and sort of, they're not making any comment about it. I'll be interested to see how we can find more information about it. Julie.
Chair, just on that one, I think following the event, I do still think there's a number of things we need to be following up on. So I have started putting together like a very brief report with some next steps. And I think that's something, I think I've now got most safeguarding contacts at the school, which I didn't have before the event. I think I have for 4 out of the 5 schools. So I think this is an opportunity now for me to kind of follow up with some of the schools, because I did manage to get some initial information from the schools prior to the event, but it wasn't really enough to feed in. So if I've got that as an action anyway for myself to follow up with the schools, and I can report.
Well, if you can go back to that meeting, and I'm not sure it wasn't Jonathan Toy all the time talking about it. Lady stood up at the back over here at that time, and she talked about I'm just trying to work out instant exclusion if they find a knife, and then so that means the number that we must be able to get the number somewhere, because you'd have had to report why you've excluded, so those numbers must be available within the county. Does that still matter? Do you get that same information if it's an academy?
So I think from what I understood was that we're quite clear, and we know about all the exclusions that take place within North Warwickshire. We should be able to access, or CAS should be able to access that data, and then we should also be able to access like which schools that relates to. And then I think there's needs to be some understanding about the policies that are in place within each of the school environments, and on whether they do a process of knife detections or weapon detections, and then what is the policy? Is it immediate exclusion, or is it, you know, other number of steps? So I think that all needs to be looked at. And also I think we know that there was an incident in Atherstone, Queen Elizabeth School, and I know the head teacher spoke to the police, but we have no data for Queen Elizabeth School. So again, we need to get a holistic picture about that.
Sorry, it just distracts me because Elizabeth is like, oh, there we go, I'm getting uptight again. I think that understanding the policies is really key, because for that bag check, for instance, my understanding is through community telling me that a bag check happened. None of the parents were informed. 17 sharp objects, bladed objects were found. No report to the police. No suspensions or exclusions. So that's then on top of the data that was already we were receiving, that was already concerning us, and then you've got the kind of the worst suspensions. And you know, people like Kath Brooks here telling us that there is a problem that, you know, she can't cope with, and she hasn't got the capacity for all these people being excluded, and the processes for which they are being excluded. But then I suppose even more concerningly, we've got communities telling us that people aren't being excluded for fairly serious, you know, bladed assaults and things like that.
Can I ask what school that was?
I'd kind of not want to get into the technical, but it's one that feeds Arnie, that's on our book.
Right, okay, well, because there's two elements.
Yeah.
There's some, it's not as bad as you think, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And there's everywhere in between. But I actually think we do need to know where it really is. And I don't know if that's possible.
What we're looking for is a clearer picture.
But if I would be amazed if there were 17 knives found in the school.
Not knives, blades, sharp objects.
I got once stabbed by a set of compasses in my leg, but the boy sat next to me.
Yeah, I've been stabbed.
And we all went to school with compasses. And when the teacher said to him, so he says to him, "Why did you do that?" He said, "I just wanted to see what he'd do."
I was very good at sewing me up. Get a needle thread and sew through your arm.
Is that possible to find that? Actually, I mean, I find that 17 sharp objects which could be used as weapons have been found in one school in a bag search. That means it's a far worse picture than it's as bad as as Jodie thinks it is.
Chair, certainly I can follow up, and I would definitely like to follow up with the schools and just get that clear picture. And the other side of that is that risk of exploitation. So with excluded children as well. So I think we just need to be really mindful of it. So I can follow up. I think the point that I took home was Kath was saying 24 exclusions was really high. And we know we are the highest in the county, but from what she said was that's a really high number for any area to be having, and over such a short period of time as well. But the other thing that I think we need to be mindful of is what the safeguarding lady said from Coleshill School. She said one pupil accounted for quite a number of those exclusions in Coleshill School. And I think we need to be a little bit mindful of that as well.
Yeah, multiple offences.
Yeah.
Bernadette.
For me, the exclusion is moving the problem, because if the parents don't give a monkeys and you're saying to the mum or dad are full-time work, the girl goes to school, gets excluded, are the parents notified? Do the parents care? That this moving the problem from school to home, and then that girl comes back to school next week with another knife because he wants a week off school, kind of thing. I get really frustrated with the exclusions. The parents and the children and the teachers, surely they've got to come up with some kind of way of dealing with this so that they don't take the bladed weapons to school, or find the parents. They're quick to find them if they take them on holiday for a week. Why don't they find them if their kid brings a bladed weapon to school? Soon, I get really frustrated with it, because it is just shifting the problem out of sight, out of mind, and the school can carry on, because the naughty kid's not at school today because we found him with a
I've been involved with something like that where we're dealing with a third managed move with one child. And there's been an event, so I don't know how anybody can legislate that. Because if you're determined enough to get excluded, you'll be excluded every time you turn up something.
Yeah.
Right, Ray.
Give me concern when Julie said you can't get any data from the QE, which obviously PCSO Scott spends a considerable time down there, and also Atherton Town Council loaned them one of the radios, which did prove successful in tracking people up into the town and getting images. It was offered to the principal, and he declined. Which,
well, that's the school issue, isn't it? Unfortunately,
it is, but it all falls under us. Julie said you struggle getting stuff from the QE. Well, what the town council was trying to help by giving them the radio so that they contact CCTV and then track people up into the town, which it did do. But then the principal down there, when he was offered this radio, which cost £10 a month, which, it's loose change, he declined.
It costs water, you can't make it drink.
Yeah, I know, but...
Any more questions on the numbers?
Yeah.
John?
I was just going to say, the other thing about the schools was Lloyd was going in with the North Warwickshire Boxing Club and doing a good job with what you call them, naughty kids or whatever. What's happening with that now, please?
With that
The
scheme,
North Warwickshire Boxing Club, yeah.
the North Warwickshire Boxing Club sadly has had to be dissolved because of structural reasons, because of movement of officers. Lloyd is no longer an officer working out of a safer neighbourhood team in North Warwickshire. Because he's not here, the skills aren't here to carry that boxing club on. But because of the success of the boxing club, we want to evolve it into something that still continues, but I've got to upskill another officer as well as the existing ones to carry on that function. But it will probably be a variation. It won't be something that happens every Monday in a gym. It will probably be perhaps going into the school and targeting the kids that are just on the fringes of being excluded and just on the edge of making the wrong choice, because Lloyd was very good at trying to keep those that were going to make a difficult decision. But that is what our ambition is to go to those schools that will accept an hour of our time once a week with children that they find difficult to work with. And it's like diversionary activities. But on the back of that, because as well as being, it won't just be boxing, it'll be like a fitness type club, to try and encourage more girls, not to be sexist, but a lot of it kind of alienated some of the girls from it. But we want to do more work on the back of, build a relationship with a child that's on a pathway, sometimes to self-destruction, and you have an avenue to then start having meaningful discussions around knife crime, around drugs, around antisocial behaviour, because you build up a relationship with them and you're not dictating to them, you're not challenging them, you're having a conversation with them, and it's two-way and it's over a course of weeks, then you might stand a chance to educate them out of a pathway that they would have naturally chosen.
I'm going to say Lloyd would turn up at our Addiston Town Council meetings and rattle off the numbers and say how well it was going, and it was noticeable, certainly in the town, that less antisocial behaviour was happening. And so
what's
hopefully
what's the chance of upskilling
down quickly?
Yeah.
I'd love to say it's going to be quickly. There's things that have happened out of my control.
Right.
I have absolutely no control over the movement, but I recognise the value, and that's why I want to do something again in that vein.
Joe, I like that idea, and I think again it's trying to get the kids to see that the police is not their enemy. They can actually be their friend and put them on the right structure, on the right path. And I'd even like it to come down to the lower level, to start at the junior school, and and do that. Because I don't know if you remember Julie Reed on one of Exclusion Kids when I was mayor, and we brought them in here and we showed them what we can do, and they went down the food bank, put a parcel together, sold the tickets, and they decided where the money was going. I remember sitting up there with a young lad, and he was one of the nicest lads you could wish to meet. His aspirations was totally above what he wanted, and all he said was, my dad said, no, just go and get a job down the sandwich factory because that's all I'm good for. And I sat there and he said about being mayor, and I said, just look, I come off a council estate, I still live on a council estate, I left school with no qualifications, but I wanted to do something to help my community. And he looked at me as though I was an alien, because he thought everybody that sits around here is, So I like the idea of starting younger with our youngsters and getting them before they get to that stage.
You need to upskill the right officer.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to get. Yeah. Actually, you need to, because it's about personality, isn't it, as well? Gary.
Sorry, through the chair. Does it have to be a sergeant or a police officer who does the training? Because you've got obviously 3 other officers who can't train, but could you bring in an outside trainer, somebody who's, obviously not the boxing, but whatever's happening, whether it's PT or whatever, that somebody who knows what they're doing, and obviously the police officers, if it's just doing gym equipment, they will know what to do with that. But for the specialised, like the boxing or any other technical sport or contact sport, you want a professional to do it, or somebody who's been trained to be a trainer. Does it have to be a warranted officer for that, or can it be somebody else, an external person who's had their time to commit to it?
You make a really valid point, and yes, there are always those options, but what is your objective in having a police boxing club or a police fitness club? Our objective was to build a relationship with the children, the police, that officer, that PCSO working in that town, to build a relationship. If we were to drag in outside agencies, they'd build up the relationships. We wouldn't have that, and they'd have a great time having a fitness and skills, but the point and the objective was to build a relationship, to have difficult conversations, to build up trust.
Sure, I'm not saying exclude the police.
Yeah.
Have the police there, like the 3 officers who were there with Lloyd could still be part of the group and be the police presence and it be a police run thing. But when the training comes into it, does it have to
use an outside
source? But I'm sure there are plenty of people who would volunteer their time for one night a week or one night a month to help those kids.
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, money comes out and underlines everything, and we all have a budget to keep, but these people will have professional jobs doing what they're doing anyway, probably. And I'm sure, like we do, we volunteer our time to come here and sit here and discuss these things. So I'm sure that there would be a possibility if the police were open to it to step out and.
It's a conversation that I have yet to have because it's one where my objective is to build a relationship between the kids and the police. That is the objective. And how we achieve that is a conversation still to be had. I don't want it to overpower what I am actually employed to do, which is to keep the peace, protect people from harm. This is a nicety, it's not a necessity. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's something that it's an added value, it's a bolt-on. It's not something that we have to do, but we want to do it. And if there was an opportunity to have somebody that was skilled and added extra value to the sessions and we could run that then I don't see any reason why that couldn't be evolved.
I think I agree with Councillor Clues on this, and that it is beneficial for the children to see police at a young age, that they aren't the enemy, that they're there to help and, like you say, protect people from harm. And if you can get in early, then the crimes that are happening when they're teenagers and that won't necessarily be happening. They won't eventually.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, but we have to get the right ones because we have. I'm going off tangent. Am I okay to talk about the scheme? We have something called the Junior PCSO scheme, where we're going into a school at the moment. And for 6 weeks, a little group of young kids in primary school, after school for an hour, but with a PCSO and a PC, and they learn about different elements of the police. And at the end of it, it's a really nice thing. They get a little certificate to say, well done, but then their message will get cascaded to their peers, and it kind of filters out that way. And we will be going to different schools for different age groups and keep that rotating. The whole purpose of the police in my role is about engagement, because we need to engage with all levels of society at all ages, and the youth, I think, is one that hasn't had that support and that level of engagement that is probably needed. It's just, sadly, always comes down to resourcing. We're trying to make it happen with the limited resources that we do have.
We done the same with our junior school, and they've got a junior council, and we went in and gave them the badges, and then they came to the chamber here and they went off with a little mayor's badge. Because the same as the youngsters you're talking about, they're our future. They could be our future policemen. And the same as these kids we was talking about could be sitting in this chamber someday. And that's the only way to get the message.
Jodie?
Just very aware that I think this is now the third meeting we've talked about this, and we haven't actually heard from any of the kids. Is there a way that we can capture through the youth groups, the ladies that was here from the Atherton youth group? I know that Harley's got quite a successful youth group going. Is there any way that we can actually get some not pupil voice, young person voice, to kind of capture what they want and how they think that we can help them, and if they've got any fears around knife crime? Because I certainly know the conversation we had, which was facilitated by one of the PCSOs that came from Nuneaton into Arley. When the conversation there was quite enlightening when they were talking about knife crime. It's like, oh yeah, of course we do. No? We have to, because everybody else has got kind of attitudes, and that was quite scary and enlightening. And I just think that we're negating their opinions and making decisions for them rather than with them. I think we could, I don't know if the youth forum might be going too far, but something that means that we've got their opinions of what they would want and what their fears are and what we can do to help.
Chair, just to come in on that. I mean, certainly if I touch base with the schools, and then I can also ask as well, has any surveys been undertaken? And then if there hasn't been, then maybe we could be talking to people like Targeted Youth and to see if they could.
But we can use our volunteer organisations. You know, we've got youth clubs, we've got kids that, and I know that it's not always the kids that we want to capture that are volunteering to go to youth club, because those kids will be in the park next door, setting up canisters or whatever. But we can at least start with finding out what their opinion is rather than just deciding for them.
If I get some baseline information from the schools about what's
Yeah, that's
taking
come from the schools,
place,
wouldn't it?
what's going on, how regularly they do checks and all that. So we start with that, and then we can then pick up further conversations around the voice of young people.
I just wanted to ask a question. Did we ever get anywhere? I'm sure it was discussed at a previous meeting about having a collection knife box in North Warwickshire.
Oh, can
Chair, I did follow up with Sergeant Skelsley because I think it was mentioned there was one in Nuneaton and one in Leamington.
Yeah, nothing in North Warwickshire.
And the comment came back very much that, you know, it still needs
Safety
to be manned. There's a safety, you know, if people are bringing in knives, that location has to be manned because there's a pile of knives in a box, whatever. So I don't know if you've got any further comments, but the comment, I did follow up on all the actions from the last meeting, and it was very much that at the current time it's not possible in Atherstone because we haven't got a location.
But is there anywhere in North Warwickshire? Because hasn't Coastal got a station, police station?
No.
No.
They work out of a room, I think, above the shop.
So North Warwickshire does not have a police station.
North Warwickshire has a patrol base,
And I understand that bit, yeah.
but there is nowhere in Warwickshire where a member of the public can go and expect to talk to somebody in the front office. There isn't anywhere
In Warwickshire.
in North Warwickshire.
North Warwickshire.
best to know that it's worked.
Mark O'Brien did that, so let's move on. Is that the last question? Because there's no more questions.
Clive, I think.
Clive.
Just wanted to make an observation on some of the requests that members have made tonight. This subcommittee fulfills a statutory function in relation to crime scrutiny, and it's quite a normal and above board process for scrutiny to invite people to attend and then let them know what they want to ask. You know, that's a completely legitimate process. And going back to the point that Inspector Wiggins made, if we were able to give some prior warning of the questions that we might want or background information that we might want from the police, then it could obviously answer members' questions and hopefully focus Inspector Wiggins' time. So in light of that, would it be of help if I prepare a little briefing note about that process and how it can work? I mean, there's some statutory guidance, there's some other really useful guidance, but you know, one of them's like 62 pages, and I think rather than just say to members here, read this, if I do a little note on it, would it be helpful to look at ways then that we could perhaps introduce that? Obviously, we still have to do the formal process of a meeting because there's rules around that. If we can find a way to, you know, maybe get information to members in sufficient time that they could review and then get back to Inspector Wiggins with things that they might want to have more information on, then it may be that we can, you know, make people's time a bit more efficient and spend it a bit more efficiently.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Are you okay with that? Praise it. 62 pages to half a page. So I'm
What page, Clive?
But I mean, if I sort of look at, you know, the principles, the overall principles, and then obviously there might be a bit of discussion about how we can do it in practice, because obviously it's not to work for everybody, you know, rather than, you know, dumping a load of questions at 5 minutes' notice.
Okay then. Yeah. One more question.
Sorry, Chair, just one more thing. As this is Safer Communities Group, the street lights in Harts Hill have been switched on for about 19 months now, overnight, and that's funded by the Parish Council. They've stepped up to paying that because the residents said we need them on. One, I would like to know, and I'm not expecting you to answer this tonight, either of you, have we seen a reduced rate in crime in Harts Hill in that period? And then the next thing is, what can we do to get the light switched on in other communities? Because I know that all communities are wanting it, but not all parish councils are in a position to pay for the lights to be switched on, and the costs have gone up extremely in the last 6 months.
Your costs have trebled.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair. Did you say the last 12 months?
It's been about 9 months since I've been on overnight. Yeah, maybe 10.
The thing is with lights, though, it's a perception, isn't it?
Yes,
So
it's
it
a
won't
feeling
necessarily
of
be cost
safety.
per down, but perception.
Yeah.
Chair, I can certainly speak to Sarah Parker and see if there's any like local data, and see and report that.
But I do think we need to get pressure onto county as well to say we need these lights switched on because people do feel safer when they're on it. And it's not the responsibility of the parishes if it comes into the county's remit. And I know that's not for this board to discuss, but I do think we need to push that the lights get switched on again. Now that everything's been switched over to LED, the actual cost of turning them on is negligible compared to what it was.
It's cost you 3 times more than what it was.
Since the
I'm just being devil's advocate.
It's because the energy companies have put their prices up.
Well,
I've asked the parish clerk to actually break that down and say, is it actual energy cost or is there something else attached to that? So I'm waiting to hear back from you on that. But
I think Mark, like I said, Mark made the point that if it's done nothing to the numbers, people would feel better about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
perception.
yeah,
It's perception. If it looks like daylight, you feel safer. You can see things around you, can't you? But if it's
Right.
night time and pitch black, you
Are we
can't.
moving this one, Jim?
Sorry?
Are we moving?
I'm just about to do that. So I'm going to say, I'll move it from the chair, so I'll get a seconder. And all those in favour of the motor report. And thank you very much. And can I say thank you very much. For
Nice meeting, Chair.
And thanks, Alison, for coming. Very good.
Thank you.
You've got a home life. I hope this is not overtime and you shifted your hour.
Inspectors don't